Welcome to a conversation with Precision Ag Institute partners with Paul Schrimpf, Executive Editor, Precision Ag Professional. Here's Paul.
Hello, Allan. Thanks for joining me today. It's a little conversation here at the InfoAg Conference.
My pleasure.
So, what's kind of been your initial impressions of the show so far?
I've been coming to the show for a number of years, and it's always kind of interesting to see what the general theme of the show is. I mean, we've seen it over the years go from FMIS to drones. I think now it's just the change of names. A lot of new names and companies coming together and trying to get a clear understanding of what these new integrated companies are going to look like going forward, and what is their digital ag platform going to be, and what are they going to be offering in the marketplace.
So it seems like with Bayer and BASF and how some of these digital offerings are sort of sorting out, that there's a real focus on internally on their products and how it works with their products, and not so much trying to chase the agronomic recommendation that we were concerned about for a while.
Correct. I think I agree with you. I mean, obviously, I think they're looking at that technology piece and trying to link it and look for the synergies into their overriding platforms and the product offerings, and positioning those products appropriately so they get the best efficacy and the results for the farmers. So, I think in that sense, it's good for the industry, because at least now we're looking at beyond fertility, beyond water. Now we're starting to look at crop protection and looking at the proper placement, utilization, timing of crop protectants across the various geographies.
Sure. How is Simplot using software and technology for that? We were talking a lot about precision ag versus decision ag, and how technology on the data side is helping to kind of sort things out. What's Simplot's view on that in your tools you're using?
I think the biggest issue is first and foremost was trying to get all of our data more centralized, so you could start utilizing it, but also getting it into a digitized format. I mean, we may have had data. A perfect example I use a lot of times is you look at kind of the history of soil test, and now you're starting to look at that lab integration. Where in the past you could receive a soil sample, but it might have been a PDF or an Excel spreadsheet. It wasn't in a digitized format that you could then put together with other data platforms or other data sets and start looking for correlations and starting to then use that data to help build a respective prescription. So it's really getting getting that data, getting beyond just the data collection and aggregation of data, really trying to get it into a format now that it is truly usable. And I think that's where a lot of our focus has been, is kind of starting to bring in some new data sets. Now with obviously equipment telemetry is getting better, so now starting to bring in as data, as planted, as applied, all that, and yield data all in there, plus all of a sudden your associated soil tissue test. So now we're starting to get so many, some good data sets, on a general piece of ground that's going to give us, I think, so much more insight than we had in the past, where you might have just been looking at Serco data or yield data. So now we have a lot more layers that we're able to actually take into consideration when we are looking to create a recommendation for a grower.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's since you're very much split in the specialty and row crop side, I mean, what are the needs of those two distinct markets, and how are they different? How are they the same?
There's definitely a lot of difference between the two respective crop types, but I think there's also, this is the perfect opportunity to start transcending the knowledge bases across the different crop sets. If you're in the broad acreage crop, I mean, obviously the compliance piece is becoming much more critical than it has been in the past. I mean, we have issues where you might be having issues like with products like dicamba and things to that extent that are getting a lot of attention. Well, you want to make sure that you're applying that product appropriately. You're recording the information to make sure that you're capturing, everything, and you're doing it as the manufacturer is recommending, so you can mitigate that potential risk. Obviously, as you start looking at specialty agriculture, I mean, it's been a little bit more slow to adopt a lot of the traditional precision ag practices such as VRT, and a lot of that's just been due to a lot of it goes right back to guidance and not having the ability to really have guidance operable underneath the canopy of an orchard or within a vineyard. So getting some of that into place starts bringing some of those tools into place. But as you're starting to look at it, I mean, it's still one of those things as you look at any acres or any size of farm. I mean, it's all applicable because you're basically looking at trying to do the right thing, the most efficient thing to maximize that productivity. So, it could be you're looking at your irrigation plant, programs, your water management, your crop protection management, soil moisture, obviously the insights and directed scouting that you can start doing. So the technology is there. It's just now, capturing that and then now turning that into actionable items that will bring value to the customer.
Mm-hmm. I mean, are there any holes in either what we have available or in our knowledge or our people or our training? What's the limitation? What are the kind of the limiting factors that are keeping us from kind of getting to the promised land of precision, so to speak?
It's surprising. I mean, we've come a long ways, but connectivity is still a big issue. I mean, there's areas that and even in relatively populous areas that you might have a single bar on your cell phone. Well, it's hard, and data packets aren't real big and not difficult to send, but it's still, if you don't have connectivity, all of a sudden you start wondering, what's the value of the data because I'm not receiving the data. So I mean, that's, I think, one of those key items that we really need to foster. Some of the new technology for connectivity. A lot of people are starting to experiment with, and if that opens up some of the opportunities where we can really start adding more sensors and more economically, and get, I think then all of a sudden more insight's going to be gained.
Is there anything new on the horizon, or anything maybe evolving that you see as particularly exciting or compelling for Simplot?
I think it's just really kind of getting into that point where some of these crops that we have not traditionally had yield monitoring capabilities, because really yield and being able to link our agronomic recommendations and practices to a return on investment are truly the driver. So we've got to be able to find that means either the development of new yield monitoring equipment for these specialty types of crops, or looking at yield modeling, and to give us a better indication so we can really start looking at the profit per acre, because that's the driving factor. Is we've got to make sure that we are looking at that profitability of the farm, and we can enable our customers to continue to grow and prosper.
Okay. And this last, is there anything on the downstream food chain from the standpoint of either retailers or manufacturers, processors that you're experiencing that might or is currently affecting how you use technology, or how you collect data, or how you store data, or in any way, shape, or form?
Well, when you start looking at downstream, there's obviously a bigger interest now. You're starting to hear some of the commodity groups talking about it. Some of the bigger food companies are starting to have an interest in it because they're wanting to have a better understanding. I think there's a lot of lack of understanding on how sustainable a farmer actually is, and so they need to have that proof. And the best way to prove that you are truly a steward is have that data to back you up.
For more information about the Precision Ag Institute, visit precisionag.com/institute.